welcome back and welcome to my favorite books of the decade video. This video was actually requested, so always if you have requests for specific videos or books that you would like to hear my thoughts on, do let me know in the comments, because I'm always happy to make videos on demand. Always happy. I could not narrow it down to 10, so this is not my top 10 books of the decade. This is just my favorite books of the last 10 years, and I know we are now well into 2020. However, I still wanted to bring this video because it was requested. So let's jump right in. Now, I don't have a copy of the actual book I'm talking about, but I have the third book in the series. So firstly, we have Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. I know that this is not Me Before You, this is Still Me, which is the third book in the series. I loved this trilogy. I loved the movie. I have a book versus movie here on my channel, so I will link that above. But I absolutely loved Me Before You. I read it on audiobook, and then when it was made into a movie, I was lucky enough to get invited to a screening with Jojo Moyes, so I reread the book again, ready for watching the movie. And this is definitely one of my top books of the decade. Not this one, Me Before You. Then another book which I don't have any of the series here to show you, but I think that is because they all, as soon as I read them, went into my classroom, and I had multiple copies of a couple of them in my classroom. So I even have a signed edition of one of them that just went into my classroom, so it's lurking in my old school somewhere back in the UK. But this whole series, especially the first book, but just the series as a whole, Geek Girl by Holly Smale, I just absolutely love this series. I would really quite happily reread this series. Maybe that's something I need to plan for some time. Let me know if you'd be interested in a reread of this series. I just absolutely love these books, and I can't wait to see she started a new series last year, and I'm really hoping that we're going to get another book in that series soon. If you know any details about it, let me know, because I do want to read that book soon. Then back to some books I actually have. I have How Not to Fall in Love, actually, and a lot of these books I do have reviews of here on my channel. I do have a review of this one. If not, my blog is always linked below. I will link my reviews because I just love these books, and I don't want to make this video super long. So this book made me laugh, it had feeling, and it just blew me away. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did, and I just absolutely adored it. So it is definitely one of my favourite books of the last decade. Then we have something slightly different. We have While I Was Sleeping by Danny Atkins, which I'd forgotten how chunky this book is. This book is well over 500 pages, and yet I read this in one sitting because it was just so amazing. I cried my way through this one, a bit like Me Before You, but it just had so much substance to it. Danny Atkins just puts her characters through so much, and I absolutely love this book. So if you're looking for something that's a bit of a weepy but has an amazing story, this one is for you. This one came out in 2018. There's a few from 2018 in this pile, actually. Then we have a book by an author who has since started releasing things under a different name, but this is also a book I read in one sitting and gasped out loud. I remember reading it in bed, and I remember laying there reading and going, what? I fully sat up in bed and went, what? I couldn't believe. This one is definitely a fabulous thriller. This is The Day We Disappeared by Lucy Robinson. Lucy Robinson now writes under Rosie, where's my book? It's here. Rosie Walsh, Ghosted. I knew Ghosted was somewhere behind here. However, her books as Lucy Robinson are all amazing. It was hard to pick which one, but because this one made me sit up in bed and go, what? That's why it is on the list. And if you haven't read it, do yourself a favor and read it. I read it in one sitting. It was amazing. Then the first of the non-fiction on my list, we have Girl Up by Laura Bates, which I have a whole book, a whole video talking about this and a load of other amazing girl power books. I still recommend this one to everyone. This is young adult non-fiction, which is an unusual find, and so it's still tabbed up. It was one of my favorite books I read in 2016. It was just amazing, and I mean, it's got like just to go to some of their tabs, it's just got some amazing stuff in it. This is one of my favorites. I think this one probably needs a reread. Just thinking about these books and talking about these books, like, I want to read them all again. But then I have new books to discover as well, and I'm sure there will be amazing books that I find in the next decade too. Then another one, if you're looking for something that's a bit weepy but has an amazing story behind it, this one is The First Last Kiss by Ali Harris. This one I read when I first started blogging. I got this one, it's a signed copy, and I got it at my first ever blogger event that I went to. I believe I wasn't even blogging for my own blog at the time. I was contributing to someone else's. So this has got a special place in my heart because of that. But also, I read it in one sitting. I made the mistake of reading it alone in my apartment. Don't do that. Read it when you've got somebody that you can interact with afterwards, because you're going to want to talk about it and you're going to want someone to give you a little cuddle, because it's a really weepy, and if you liked One Day, you will love this one even more. I can guarantee it. Then we have a book which I have again talked about here on this channel, and I just absolutely adored this one. And this one is Together by Julie Cohen. Look at this, look at the foil on this cover. This book is written backwards, and I'm still just in awe of everything she did with this one. This one will definitely pull a tear or two out of your eye as well. Not as weepy as the last one, but apparently I like books that make me cry. Who knew? I've got some books that made me laugh in here as well, but just highly recommend this one. You can't say too much about this one because there are so many spoilers, but it's just awesome, and I love everything that Julie Cohen writes basically. But this was definitely one of my top books of the decade, and I loved it. Then one that will come as no surprise, again, I have a whole review of this one on my channel. I read it in one day. This common theme with these books here, I was just blown away by it, and we're switching back to another thriller now. This one is Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. I just have always loved everything that Lisa Jewell has written. I think I have one here on the shelf behind me, literally right here, that I haven't read yet, and I'm almost like saving it because then I'll have read everything she's written and I won't have anywhere to go, and I'll have to wait for this year's novel to come out. You know, nobody likes to wait. But this one just blew me away. I cried and I gasped, and it was amazing. And this one I am quoted on the inside of, where am I? There I am. I say, this book left me breathless, shaking with adrenaline, and just blown away. Lisa Jewell has just written her best novel yet. And I still feel that way. I have loved her novels that have come afterwards, but still, that one right there, massive need to reread it. Then I only have a proof copy of this one. I need to get myself a finished copy, and I probably will do, because I'm going to be doing a reread of this author's novels starting in February, so look out for a video announcing that soon. But this one is The One We Fell in Love With by Paige Toon, and this isn't anywhere near the cover. Click down to my blog and you can find the cover. It's a signed copy. I'm very excited, and this one was just so different from what I was expecting, and was just, again, I think I read it in one sitting. I think I couldn't put it down. I just kept turning the pages. It was amazing. It made me cry. It had 3 fabulous characters, and that's all I'm going to say about that. And then another one that I don't have a physical copy of, but I have talked about my love for this book on this channel, and I have made a book versus movie video on this channel, so I'll leave it linked if I've got enough links left. And this is Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. I own the audiobook of this one, and I borrowed the paperback from the library. However, I don't have a physical copy of it myself. I did have a copy of Leah, but I gave that away to someone, so I can't even say I like this one too. But Simon and Leah, I love them both, but I swung back and forth between Simon and Leah for which one would be my favourite of the decade, and I think I had to put Simon just because I reread it for the movie and it just stuck out as something which is like truly amazing, and I really enjoyed. And even though I don't have a copy of it here, I highly recommend it, and like I say, I'll leave that book versus movie linked up above. Then one that will come as no surprise, I had to double check that I definitely read this one in this decade, and I believe I read it, I feel like I've you know, read this one so long ago, but I believe I read it the year it came out, either that or just after the year it came out. And the version of it that I read, again, I don't have, but I do have this beautiful, like a bind up edition of Wonder and all the Wonder stories that go with it. I recently read White Bird. I made a video talking about that. I just love Wonder so much, and it must be almost time for me to reread it. I have a book versus movie talking about this one. This is my most reread book, although I haven't read it since going to see the movie, which was a couple of years ago now. But it is just, I just love it so much. Anyway, Wonder, you know I love it. I have multiple videos talking about it, so I probably can't link them all, but that version, whew, blows you away. Back to another non-fiction now. We have How to Be a Woman by Caitlin Moran. This is not the version that I read, but it is a version that I really wanted to collect because it's just so beautiful, and I got this at Strand in New York. And I went there one time and it said they had a copy of this version, and they didn't have it, and I was like, oh, sad. They said they could order it for me, but I waited patiently and went back and got this one for half price, so I'm not complaining. I re-listened to this one on audio quite recently. I say quite recently, it was probably like 3 years ago, but loved it just as much the second time, and I read this when it first came out. So this might be the oldest one on the list, might be. I think it is actually the oldest release on the list, the furthest back in the last decade. But if you're looking for some non-fiction, haven't read this one yet, Caitlin Moran is awesome. She also has other non-fiction books that are amazing, and some fiction books that are also bloody brilliant. Then another one that I don't have a copy of here to show you, and that is Lobsters by Tom Ellen and Lucy Iveson. And in the US it is out as a totally awkward love story, and it's got two fingers on it that are kind of like this, like finger with faces on, if that makes sense. I'll put a picture, that would be better than me go fingers with faces. But the UK version has lobsters on it, and this is about that period of time between when you leave school and you start university, and what happens when you go off to university and you are your own person and your friends aren't there anymore and they're at different universities, because that is such a pivotal time. Thinking back to that time in my life, I wish I'd read some books on it beforehand, because it was a weird time, and looking back on it now, it's just like, oh, I wouldn't have done that, or I would have done this, I would have made more of that opportunity or less of that opportunity. Yes. And then I have one on the list which has to get a special mention because I appear in this book, well, my name anyway appears in this book and the subsequent follow up to this book, and this is Just for Christmas by Scarlett Bailey. And in case you don't know, Scarlett Bailey is Rowan Coleman, is Bella Ellis. So if you've read any books by Rowan Coleman, that's Scarlett Bailey, or if you've read the first Bronte Mysteries book by Bella Ellis, as Scarlett Bailey, Rowan Coleman. And I just love this book. It is so sparkly and so shiny, and every year when I talk about Christmas books in my Vlogmas videos, this one comes up because it was so lovely. And I think maybe one year I need to plan better and make sure I plan a reread of this one and the follow-up, which was called Two Weddings and a Baby. Yes, Two Weddings and a Baby. My name appears more in that one, but I love the fact that I'm in this book and it's a Christmas book and it's a Scarlett Bailey Christmas book and it's just everything you want from a Christmas read. I think I'm in the acknowledgements of this one as well, which is always exciting. Let's see. You like just watching me flick through? Yes, I am. I'm in the acknowledgements of that one. Let me know in the comments if you spotted me, because that was quite a quick showing. Then one which will come as no surprise to you. I had to toss up which was my favourite book of the decade from this author, but it helped that the first book from this author wasn't actually in the most recent decade, it was in the decade before, so that's why the choice came down to this one, and this is I'll Take New York by Miranda Dickinson. I'm also in this one. How exciting is that? 2 in a row that I was in. I think I appear as myself in this one. I'm just Catriona. But this is the follow-up to Fairy Tale in New York. Fairy Tale of New York, it's up there. By Miranda Dickinson, obviously. And this is a follow-up, and we are all waiting very patiently for the kind of third book to possibly come out, because there is a third brother. Book 1 deals with one brother, book 2 deals with another brother. This is another one that I read in one sitting. I read it like overnight as well. I read it with a lot of coffee, because coffee is mentioned so many times in this book, and I love the fact that coffee is mentioned so many times in this book, because you know I love me a coffee. I haven't just got a whole cup of coffee sat here right now. Love for this mug, by the way. Absolutely love this mug, and it's so like light and dainty. But yes, absolutely love that, and it's another one from this list that I read in one sitting. And I don't think I cried in that one too much. The last couple of books have been very much like feel good, uplit. But yes, next one, no crying either. Yay! 1 in a Million by Lindsay Kelk. I have a video where I talk all about her novels, and I decided that I would pick this one as my favourite of the decade because it's a standalone. I could have just gone with the entire I Heart series, but the first book of the I Heart series was of course released in 2009, so thankfully it came along, because 2009 for me was rubbish, apart from reading my first Lindsay Kelk and my first Miranda Dickinson novel. Yeah, aside from that. 1 in a Million is amazing because it deals with social media so well, and ourselves that we put on social media versus ourselves in real life, and what social media is actually like. And I just love that about it. I love the fact that she was brave enough to tackle that issue, because a lot of people wouldn't be, because social media is such a big thing, and it also dates your novel a little bit, but I don't care. I love this book and I highly recommend reading it if you haven't read it, and it's definitely one of my top books of the decade. I think we only have 2 left. Let me check my list. No, we have 3 left. I want to mention Letters to the Lost by Iona Gray. This is a historical fiction novel, and I don't read historical fiction, or I try to read historical fiction and generally don't like it. However, Letters to the Lost by Iona Gray, and Iona Gray in general, I just love. I know that anybody who has read this book generally has massively strong feelings about it. They fall in love with it just like I fell in love with it, and I know people who have reread it again and again and again. I don't know if it would be a book that would stand up to rereading, so if you have read this one more than once, let me know, because some of the magic of it was discovering things as you went along the way. She just tackles so much in this novel, and although it's historical fiction, it's not at the same time. We've got 2 different timelines, one set many years ago and one set nowish, and so it is and it isn't, and we flash back and forth, and I love a dual narrative, and I like multiple timelines, and it was a really special book, and that's why it's made it on the list, because I just loved it. Then we have another young adult book. I think I've got a nice mix of genres and audiences here. I mean, I've got a lot of adult rom-coms, but another young adult book, which you know I absolutely loved and I reread last year, and that is Big Bones by Laura Dockrell, or to give it its US title, My Ideal Boyfriend is a Croissant. But we know that My Ideal Boyfriend is a Croissant anyway, and there's a warning that comes with this book because it just talks about food and will make you so hungry. So I recommend reading this over lunch and breakfast and cheeseburgers and pomegranate and coffee, and especially having crumpets to hand. I'm sure one of the titles was, well, here's the title, Croissants, and this is the one that contains the line of My Ideal Boyfriend is a Croissant. Oh, where's it gone? I really wanted to tell you that. Right, here's croissants. Croissants, croissants. Oh, she's talking about bad croissants. Nothing worse than a bad croissant. I think my ideal boyfriend would be a croissant, I say to Dad. Oh no, Dad shakes his head, taking my comment deadly seriously. They cancel on you at the last minute. Too flaky. He winks and takes a bite. That's what I think of your boyfriend. He laughs. Oh, that's so funny. Then it talks about why. It does talk about why. I'm trying to find the bit. Anyway, talks about why her ideal boyfriend would be a croissant, but I like that, and I like the fact there's a little dad joke in there, but I just love that book so much. BB is such an amazing character, or Bluebell or Big Bones, whatever you want to call her, and I so loved my reread of it last year. It was so great being back with her again, and it just made me feel so good, so good. So yeah, if you're looking again, bit of uplit, but a young adult novel that deals with real issues and real things that are going on, and is just honest with you, but also makes you laugh out loud, and also makes you like desperately crave crumpets to the point where you're looking up how to make crumpets at home. That is your man. And then finally, a book that you know I read in one sitting, and this was my first ever thriller that I read, like ever. I had not dabbled in this genre before, however, I was willing to give it a go. This book was just sent to me and I picked it up, and then I didn't put it down again, and I made my dad wait to go to his 60th birthday meal until I had finished the last 17 pages. Of course, this is The Accident by C.L. Taylor. I love C.L. Taylor. I've talked about her books an awful lot here on this channel. She writes amazing thrillers. This one, the tagline is, "You took my child, now I'll take yours." That's all you need to know. Keeping this secret was killing her. And this book now has a slightly updated cover. I'm going to show you the slightly updated cover by power of the iPad. Bear with me. Here is the updated cover. You're just getting me now. Hi, here's my camera. It's got just a little bit more colour on it. But I love this book. I love everything C.L. Taylor writes, but as much as I, love all her subsequent books, The Accident is still my favourite, And she also has the young adult one, The Fear, which is also really good. Or is it The Treatment? No, The Treatment is the young adult one. Get the title right, Katrina. Okay, there you have it. I have 20. I couldn't limit it to 10, but I managed to narrow it down to 20. And we're talking like, I put the blog post together and I cut 15 books off the list there. But yeah, since it's 2020, I have my top 20 books of the last decade. So thank you so much for requesting this video. Let me know in the comments some of the books you have just been so passionately in love with in the last decade. I would love to have more to add to my TBR. I mean, I wouldn't, but I would, Book lovers, we like books. Let me know if you are also in love with any of these books, because I love talking about my favourite books. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you are subscribed so that my next video lands in your subscription feed. I'm hoping it's going to be a little shorter than this one. And as I say, leave me a comment. I will see you down there, and I will be back very, very soon.